This is episode 49 of the Why Not Me podcast, 12 Ways I'm Doing It Wrong. I'm your host, Anita Bremer. I'm a wife, mom, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a life coach. And I believe when you know who you are, you can be the best you at what you're called to do. This requires faith, wisdom, and mental wellness. That's what we talk about here. Okay, you guys. This episode just fell right out of my mind onto paper, and it was so easy and quick that the original plan that I had, which I will tell you about at the very end of this episode, got put on the back burner because I was like, clearly someone needs to hear this. I am recording on December 15th. And if you go to my Instagram, I recorded a live in which I just had a few thoughts that were a little bit off the cuff, but this episode kind of came from that. So if you want to go back and listen to that, you're more than welcome. But this is a little bit more formulated and planned. Not a whole lot more because that's not really how I roll, but I did write down some thoughts. I normally type up my notes and have it in this outline that I have a template and everything. And this time it's just on a piece of paper. So if you're watching on YouTube and I'm looking down, that's why I'm looking at my notes. So I wanted to talk about 12. I came up with 12 ways that I'm quote unquote doing it wrong. I considered naming this episode like going against the grain or going against the flow type of thing. Because that's what I was talking about in my live that I did earlier today. I was talking about opting out of the quick fix, immediate gratification, go, 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 rush kind of paradigm. And I'm realizing the longer I am in business for myself, the more I understand kind of how I want to do business and what feels right to me. And I just hit my 3-year mark of being certified through the Life Coach School. Congratulations to me. And so I've basically been in business for 3 years. And really, the first 2.5 years until about halfway through this year, I just was doing what other people were telling me to do. And I mean, I was just trusting, and it's not like I had other ways that I thought I should do things. It's just that was the most obvious thing. Like, okay, just follow their advice. They're successful. Do what they do. And it's not that I've been like in resistance. I don't think I've been resisting it. It just hasn't felt amazing to me. So this year has really been a year of me discovering what really, it's been honestly a year of me feeling into my body. Like, what does my body even feel like? I kid you not. I sometimes sit here and I'm not having like a strong emotion necessarily, but I've been starting to practice when I feel quote unquote normal. What does that even mean? What does normal in my body feel like? And the more I practice just being in my body and being present and noticing the sensations and what's there, the more I become aware of what feels good and right, what my intuition is telling me, those kinds of things. So this year has been really a journey of kind of learning myself, to be honest. That's kind of how I think of it. It seems so silly to say that. I'm 41 and a half years old, but it has only been now that I've really slowed down enough to really listen to myself and to my body, and listen in a way that is not like, okay, I'll listen to you because I want to get to this end goal. Really listening with openness and curiosity, with no end goal in mind, with just, let's just be here and see what comes up. And it has been really revolutionary. And I didn't even plan on telling you all of that, but that's kind of the backstory of what got me here. And one lesson that I have learned this year, this is like one of the lessons from 2021, has been that I actually always follow my intuition. I just don't always know that I'm following my intuition. And sometimes it takes my brain a little bit of time to get on board with following my intuition. Like I have these gut instincts. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to not do that. And then my brain's like, but why? Why can't we do it that way? That way makes sense. And I don't always have an explanation for for my intuition and my gut. That's like why we call it a gut feeling. There isn't a logical explanation all of the time. And this is something that I'm learning that really, I'm actually really good at following my intuition. It's just a matter of how long does it take my brain to get on board with that, my logic to get on board with it. And what I've been realizing is that I am actually a very feeling person. I'm a person that follows my emotions. And I kind of think of my intuition as a subset of my emotions. It's definitely like a sensation in my body. I wouldn't call it necessarily an emotion, but I've, from a very young age, I learned to be more in my head and to be more logical so that I could both kind of cope with sort of traumatic things that were happening, but also so that I could align myself with the way things were acceptable to the world. It's very acceptable to the world to be a good student, for example. And so now that I have some perspective and I'm 41 years old, I can finally look back and kind of see how being the good student and being in my mind was kind of a coping mechanism for all of the big emotions, the overwhelming sensations that were happening to me. And it has only been this year that I have learned, like, oh, I'm actually really good at emotions and intuition. That's what comes very naturally to me. But I've just learned to live in my head as a coping mechanism. And so I'm starting to unlearn that. I'm starting to unlearn being in my head. And sometimes it's very painful. So, my business as a coach is such an amazing example of this. And I have learned in the last 3 years that I've been a certified coach that I often, like, I almost kind of have this rebellious streak in me that, like, if somebody says, don't do this, then I'm kind of like, I kind of feel like I want to do it that way. Just not because they said not to, but because my intuition is saying to do that. And I'm hearing mentors and successful people say to not do it that way. And it like rubs me the wrong way. And I think it's because my intuition is screaming at me to do it that way. And so it feels rebellious. It's not really actually rebellious. It's actually very much go with the flow with my own body, but it's a little bit rebellious to the messages from the rest of the world, right? And so that's kind of how we tend to think of rebellious. So there's a part of me that sort of likes that. Like there's a part of me that doesn't want to do what everyone else is doing, that doesn't want to do something just because it's popular. I still do things that are popular if they make sense to me. But I don't want to do things just because, well, everybody else is doing it, so I should do it that way. I want to do things because that's what feels right to me. And sometimes that does look like whatever is the rest of the world is doing. Not always. Okay. So I, I wanted to talk about the ways in which I feel like I'm quote unquote doing it wrong, which is not really doing it wrong. It's just doing it the way that my body, my intuition feels like I should do it. And I also want to really encourage you, because if I can give you a shortcut, I'm all in on that. Like I would love to help you get through some of the things that I've been through the last few years faster and more efficiently. Like that's one of my purposes in life. So I want to encourage you to think about What are those areas of your life or those moments, even not necessarily entire areas, where you feel like you're going against the grain, going against the flow, swimming, you know, swimming across the current type of thing. But it feels, if you like get quiet and still, it feels right to you, because this is going to be so enlightening to you. It has been very enlightening to me. These are some of the areas, some of the things that I feel like I have my most wisdom and my most confidence, is when I can see this, like, oh, this is me following my intuition. And it was just all the other voices telling me, no, no, don't do that, that I was trying to reconcile. And when I just surrender to my intuition, I always feel better and I'm always more successful. So the first way is literally in coach training. Brooke Castillo said, don't coach on, I'm not good enough. She said, everybody feels like they're not good enough. It always comes down to, I'm not good enough. Don't coach on that. And as soon as she said that, I was kind of like, I kind of want to coach on that because that's my journey. She talks about how it's like this tree, and the leaves on the outer branches, we just pluck them one at a time, and eventually all roads lead to Rome. We get to the root of the issue. The root of the issue is always, I'm not good enough, or like Jody Moore would say, something's wrong with my life, or something is wrong with me. And she says, don't coach on that. It's like everybody's problem. So it almost, in a way, you get no traction. And honestly, in a way, I agree with her. When I look at the thought, I'm not good enough, it's kind of hard to get traction on that. But I felt like she was saying, and that she may have said this, I can't remember. She said, don't let your niche be people who feel like they're not good enough. And so I didn't at first. That wasn't my niche. And it has been kind of this long, winding journey to come back to, but that's my journey, is the thought that is often at the very tip top of my mind, that is one of those leaves on the tree and isn't really the root. It's also the root, but it's the leaf as well, is I just don't feel like I'm good enough. And that's just what I want to coach on. So in a way, I feel like I'm doing it wrong for choosing that as part of my like marketing messaging. Like, do you feel like you're not good enough? Are you always hard on yourself and critical and judgmental of yourself? I'm the coach for you. And I've been told by mentors to not do that. So maybe I'm doing it wrong, but if I'm doing it wrong, it feels right in my body. So I'm just going to keep going. The second way that I feel like I'm going against the flow here, I'm stepping out of the paradigm of quick fixes, go, 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 immediate gratification, is that I have really long coaching packages. Most people have, well, I shouldn't even say most people. I don't really feel like there's a standard here, but very many coaches that I know of in my coaching community have 12-week packages, or even 6-week packages, 8-week packages. The coach that still does one-on-one, that gets the highest that I know of, the highest, she asks the most amount of money, and she does for her one-on-one, because a lot of coaches move to groups or memberships, but this particular coach still does one-on-one, and she does a 4-month package. I think it's a 14-week package for 20,000. Her price might even be higher than that now. It feels so short to me. So I love having long packages. I love working with my clients for a year. In fact, sometimes I'll offer a 6-month package if I think that's appropriate for the client. But honestly, like a year even is barely scratching the surface. This is what boggles my mind. If you go in and you work with a coach for 3 months, part of me is like, how are you not just scratching the surface? Right? Because I've hired many, many coaches. I have had those experiences. The longest package I've had has been 6 months. with the one-on-one. And I felt like we were just getting started. So I don't know if this is a function of me and how I work. Maybe I'm a slow processor. Maybe, I need more time or whatever. But I just feel like, considering the fact that some of these patterns, these thought patterns, these feeling patterns, these nervous system patterns, I have been creating for almost 40 years, 3 months or 6 months feels like just barely scratching the surface. And so I like to start with a year. And I have one client that has finished a year, and we're about 3 months into her second year-long package. And I love her so much. I know her really well. I've heard a lot of the stories. I can see the patterns. I can remember things that we coached on, like a year ago, and point out similarities. And I just love it so much, but it feels totally like going against the grain of what the standard is and what people say you should be doing. Along with this, I hear a lot like, create a program, offer something, like a thing, an actual product in the world. And I just don't. Every time I tell myself, okay, we're going to create a program, it throws me into tons of drama. And really all I want to do is like sit with the person, listen to them, listen to the feelings that they're having, the thoughts that are coming up, what their nervous system seems to be doing, and then coach on that. I don't want to put it into a formula or like, one of my dreams is to have a course that I can sell that helps a lot of people, where they can do it kind of in the confines of their own home, with the privacy and all of that. Like, I would love to put what I do into a package because I do think that it would help more people. But so far, I haven't been able to do that because I just feel like every individual is so unique. And that is very true. And also we have some of similar thoughts, right? And so maybe at some point in the future, I'll be able to create a package. But for now, I can't do it yet because I'm like so in on my clients with our individual relationship and their uniqueness, and like seeing their highest version of themselves, that I haven't figured out how to put that into a course yet. And I've come to a place where I am accepting of that I feel like that's actually part of my uniqueness, but it also feels like it's going against the grain. Another way, number 3 way that I'm doing it wrong, so to speak, is that I believe my belief in my clients and my relationship with them is more important than anything that I teach them, than whatever we discuss on a specific call. It's almost like I could sit with a person for an hour and I could not say anything and they could not say anything, but we could be in relationship, and I can believe in them and see them in their highest potential. I don't even have to say anything. And that alone is more impactful than anything I could say, any homework I could give, um, any model I could run, right? That the relationship and the feeling between us is the most important thing. And that's really hard to put into a course. I don't even know if it's possible. I haven't actually even thought about that. And so it feels like it's going against the grain. It feels like me putting that as like the number one priority, not my client's outcome, not did they come and get what they signed up for. Just that relationship is the most important thing. I have noticed this change in my parenting. And I'm not totally 100% through it. I'm still totally, completely, and will always be an imperfect parent. But I have gone from expecting my children to show up a certain way or do a certain thing, like do your chores or get good grades or like some outcome that I want from them. I have gone from that to our relationship is just the most important thing. And I just want to love you the best way I can, which again is totally imperfect, but that's like more important. You get pregnant before you're married, you start doing drugs, you start drinking alcohol, you leave the church, like whatever things that I can imagine that would be like the worst case scenario. I practice in my mind thinking about my children making those choices, doing those things, and I practice just loving them anyway. Just being like, oh my gosh, I totally get it. I love you. Or I totally don't get it. I love you. I actually legitimately practice that in my mind. And I think it has really shifted things. Like I have a daughter who's about to be 18 in a couple weeks. And because I know her a little bit, my guess is that she's going to go get some tattoos and some piercings and do some things that I don't necessarily approve of. And I've already practiced being like, oh my gosh, I love it so much. Show me the tattoo. Did it hurt? Like I've practiced in my mind being curious from like this really loving space. And it changes everything. Like I get to enjoy her and I get to enjoy me, to be honest, as the mom. Like I don't worry. I don't stress. It's just like, of course, my kids are going to do these things that I don't agree with because they're their own people, right? And I almost have a hard time even putting into words how I have made this shift from the relationship being based off of outcomes to being based on just like, I just choose to love you no matter what. But it feels edgy. It feels unacceptable in some ways, in some circles. Number 4 is that I want to go slow. And I kind of mentioned this earlier. I sort of view myself as being a slow processor, needing a lot of time, needing time to let things acclimate, that kind of thing. I used to think that that was a bad thing. Now I just think, oh, that's just how I am. But I think about, and I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this the last few weeks. I think about Atomic Habits, the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the whole premise is that when we shift in these micro habits, these tiny little building blocks, it is the most powerful thing, right? In fact, his book, I have it right here, actually. His book it says, oh, I don't know if this is, so the title of the book is Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. But at the top of the book, it says, tiny changes, remarkable results. And I have loved this book ever since I first read it a couple of years ago. And I haven't been able to quite put my finger on why exactly I love it, but until now. And now I realize it's because of this, the whole paradigm is small, incremental changes, habits, practices to create lasting transformation. You will see all over the internet, like I just saw today, 3 days to change your body image. You will never, ever see me offering something like that. 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, even to change, to get this specific transformation. You will never see me offering it because I don't believe in it. I don't believe that true lasting change comes from a fixed period of time. I believe it's all about those day in and day out habits and practices that we put in place as lifestyle changes, right? It's the whole concept behind we're not dieting. We are legitimately changing our diet, the things that we put into our body permanently. And if it's not sustainable, then it's not going to work. Right. And so I'll never offer something like that because I don't believe in it. I believe that lasting change, lasting transformation happens over the course of time. This is one of the reasons why I offer really long packages. And I have heard people say like, but people don't want to commit to that, or they don't want to pay that much money or whatever. But I think my people, the people who are attracted to me, They're more concerned with the lasting transformation than they are with how long is the package. I like going slow. I like the micro, the small, the quiet, the least viable change option, right? I believe that's what leads to lasting transformation. And you know what? It probably doesn't sell very well. It's not like if I were to do a Facebook ad or something and be like, sign up with me for the next 10 years. People would be like, really? It's going to take me 10 years? It doesn't sell well. But that's the truth of it. The truth is that when you go all in on yourself, it's not going to be 6 weeks or 3 months or probably even 6 months. It's probably going to be 10 years. And the transformations, some of them might be these light bulb moments. That has happened to me for sure. But most of them are going to be, oh, I just noticed that I was around my sister again and I was really clear with my boundaries and I had no drama about it. Right? Those are the kinds of transformations, the ones that we almost don't even notice because we're working so slowly, so incrementally that we don't notice it. Right? It's like we don't notice our children growing until we compare last week's school photo or last year's school photo with this year's school photo. Then we're like, whoa, you really changed a lot, right? And, the world loves the before and after. They love the stark transformation. But I am just here to say that I don't really believe in it. I don't really think it works very well. So I'm all in on the slow. And I think of the scripture about by small and simple things are great things brought to pass. That is like one of my life's mottos. By small and simple changes are great changes brought to pass. It doesn't make sense. It is not logical. It is not what the world wants you to believe because most of the world wants your dollars. And I don't know, maybe this is a bold statement. And, it's not that I don't want to make a living off of what I do in the world. It's just that is like so much less of my focus. I want your transformation. I want you to really change. I'm all about the true repentance, right? Repentance is a change of mind about God, about oneself, and about the world. And if I can get to the end of my life and I can say, I helped people to really change, to really truly repent, there is no dollar amount that will come close to that feeling. So it feels like I'm doing it wrong when I sell you slow growth and slow change, but it also feels so right to me. Okay, what number are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4. We're on number 5. Number 5 is that I talk about words like identity and purpose. And everybody says, don't use purpose because it's coach speak and people don't really know what it means. And, those kinds of things. And I'm like, you know what? But that's how I talk. That's what I want. My concern for myself is who am I? And am I fulfilling my purpose? What does God want of me? And the best word for that is purpose. So I use those kinds of words. Number 6, closely related, is I'm doing it wrong because I really talk in these sort of like metaphors and parables and this sort of like high level theory. And all of my mentors say, like, make it concrete. How does it affect them in their daily life? This is why I'm such a terrible marketer. It's because I think the world says, like, you have to make it real for me. But, like, when we work on who am I and what is my purpose, what does that mean in my real life? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm not in your real life. But this is, I believe, Christ's way, because Christ talked about stories. He talked in parables. He gave metaphors because every individual is at a different place. And so he did this so that we could take what we need in that moment where we are on our individual path and the rest of it would go over our heads, right? But he gives everybody what they need. And now that I see this, sort of high level theoretical approach that I have, I'm like, yeah, it kind of is the way Christ speaks, right? And so I'm giving myself permission to just do it and just to be me, because that's who I am. And sometimes I do make it concrete, but most of the time I like to talk in this sort of intellectual, theoretical, parabolic, is that a word? Parable, metaphorical type way, because I feel like it meets the most people where they are. And I feel like that's the way Christ did it. So I'm going to keep following him. Number 7, I treat the cause, not the symptom. The world wants to just fix your symptoms and send you on your way. They want to put a Band-Aid on it. We see this in the medical field. So many times doctors are like, okay, well, yeah, let's put a cast on it. But then it's like, but why did my arm break in the first place? Right? Am I not getting enough calcium? Do I have cancer in my bones? Like, what's the problem here? And I can't treat the symptoms. I have to go several layers deep and figure out what the cause is. And I always think the cause is how you're thinking of yourself. This is why I coach around identity. And, that doesn't always sell, because people don't always know that they're trying to solve a symptom and not a cause. They think they are solving a cause. When we say, I want to lose weight, it's such a common theme, right? In the United States here, in our culture, I don't believe that it's a cause. I think having more weight than we want, or even thinking that however our bodies are, whatever they weigh is a problem, I think all of that is a symptom. And so that's how I think of it. And I will never sell you, I'll help you lose weight. I will always sell you, I'll help you feel good about yourself, because I want to treat the real cause, not just the symptom. Okay, I think we're on number 8. I often follow what feels good and not what logically sounds good. This is sort of the whole idea behind this episode, is that I follow my intuition and not my logic. Even this shows up in my coaching sessions. Sometimes I let the client lead the session if that's what feels good. I have a client who knows exactly what she wants. So she'll show up to a call and she'll be like, I want you to coach me on this. And I coach her on this. And then she'll be like, okay, I'm done with this. I want you to coach me on that. And I allow it. And some coaching mentors would say, you're not leading the session and you're not doing your job as the coach in whatever way. And I'm like, I don't care. I believe that the client has the most wisdom on themselves. So I will do whatever feels right in that moment. Now, sometimes that means I go, wait. We're not going to skip ahead. We're not shifting right now. And sometimes that's like, okay, well, let's shift. And it just depends on that moment of what feels good to me. And I don't know, maybe it makes me a not as effective coach, but I don't care because that's what feels good to me, to follow my intuition. And I believe that my clients always get what they come for. And they are drawn to me because I am like that. So I just let it go, and I don't try to fight against that. Number 9, sometimes I mix modalities. Sometimes we'll start out running a model, and then we'll go into feelings, and then we'll go back to the model, and then we'll go into feelings. And I've heard several people say, if you're going to do a model, do it all the way through. And if you're going to do feeling work, and like keep them very separate. And I just don't do that. So maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I'm going against the flow, but maybe this kind of comes under the heading of, I do what feels right in that moment. I do what feels of service to the client in the moment. Yeah. I'm basically I think this is number 10. I'm basically a general life coach. It's not really the words that I use, but that's what I am. I'm a general life coach for Latter-day Saint women. Really, I coach the whole person and the whole picture. I really haven't niched down other than like, do you feel like you're not good enough? But as we've discussed earlier, pretty much everyone feels that way. So I don't like I don't like choosing myself, but I also don't like making the client choose like, I can only get coached on money right now, or I can only get coached on my relationship right now. You know what? That's not real life. And that's not what it's like to be human. What it's like to be human is today I'm struggling with my business, and tomorrow I'm struggling with my teenager. And the day after that, I struggle in my marriage, and it just all goes together. And so I refuse to niche down. And maybe that is stupid of me. And maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I like it. I like that I come to the whole person and that nothing is off limits and they can talk about literally anything from the smallest, seemingly silly thing to the biggest, heaviest things. And I've had people say, that's really hard to do that, to be able to not know what's going to come up. And I'm like, to me, it feels easy and good and right. So maybe I'm doing it wrong, but that's what I do. Number 11, I use myself as an example. I've kind of lost track of numbers here, but I think this is the last one. I thought I had 12, but maybe I've kind of squished some together. Yeah, I use myself as an example often because that is the basis of my coaching, is based off of my experience. I mean, the whole like first 40 something episodes of this podcast were me telling my stories and explaining my experience. And sometimes I have had coaches train me and say like, stay out of their story, stay out of their session. It's not about you. And I don't think it's about me, but sometimes when I'm trying to think of an example that will help my clients, the only examples I have are me. And I have had a couple clients say, thank you so much for doing that, because it makes me feel like I'm not as alone. And it makes me feel like it's possible. If you could change, I can do it. And so I do insert my own life experience and my own experiences, my own stories, because I honestly think that that's what makes every coach unique and individual, and what sets us apart is our own experiences. So like, for example, right now I'm working with a trauma coach. She doesn't necessarily do this, but one of the reasons why I hired her was because from listening to her podcast, I could tell that she had like real life experience working through her trauma and working through her emotions and holding space for herself. And I wanted to know that the person that I was going to work with could do that and has done it. And so I do that. I don't spend a lot of time. I just sometimes insert little examples from my life and really hold belief like, listen, I am not different than you. And if I can do this, you can do this too. And here's how I did it. And sometimes that's what my clients need. They need some examples. They don't need to be told, well, it's your thought, or what do you think, or how do you feel? Sometimes we need to see, here's a possible way, and here's a possible way. And then our brains can go, oh, I see how I could do it differently. And then we're open to getting creative and creating solutions on our own. So I do that, and I give myself full permission to do that. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it feels right to me. Okay, this has been a long episode. I didn't know it was going to take 40 minutes, but I just want to give you permission to listen to your own body and listen to your own intuition. Some of us operate more out of our intuition. Some of us operate more out of our hearts. Some of us operate more out of our logic. None of it is wrong. Just figure out what kind of a person you are, which one it is for you that feels good and right and that leads you. And I think this is part of even learning how we hear the spirit or feel the spirit. I've just learned that I'm a gut person. I operate out of my gut, out of what just like feels right in my core. Right. And And then even if it feels like the rest of the world says that's not as valuable, or you won't be as successful, or you'll never get it right doing it that way, the real challenge is, how do we shut those voices out? And how do we just listen to the way that works for me, the way that works for you, right? In your life. I am not one to say that you have to do it a certain way. I'm more interested in helping you figure out the way that works for you. Okay, that's enough for now. And so are you. And when I say that, I totally believe that you are totally enough. And remember, whatever work you feel called to do, who are you and why not you? Like, answer those questions. You are here for a reason. And if not you, then who? You're called to this work. So get out there and do it. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If this episode made you think of yourself in a new way, would you please give it a little rating and a review? It would help so much. And if you want to truly do the work of being the best you at what you do, go to danitabremmer.com to schedule a free session. Until next time, go be you and follow the spirit. Oh, I almost forgot. I was going to tell you about the other episode that I thought was going to happen today. Excuse me. I have been putting together I'm trying on the title for it, personality blueprint or identity blueprint, in which we explore 6 and maybe even soon to come 7 different tools, personality frameworks. I'll just tell you the tools. They're strengths from Clifton Strength Finder, a values exercise, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, a why exercise from Simon Sinek, and then maybe I'm going to add in the spark type. I haven't finished exploring that myself, so I don't know yet. And then I do a week to strategize and make it real. Like, how does this work for you in your life? So that is something that's coming up for next year. I definitely want to, I've tested it with 2 people and they both have come back with raving reviews, and they keep telling me like how much it's impacting them and how much they're learning from it. And so I want to include that in my coaching. If after this episode, you feel like, I'd like to work with Danita, I do year-long coaching packages, like I keep saying. And if you sign up by the end of the year, I'm going to be taking some time off for Christmas. But if you sign up by the end of the year, I will throw in this 6, or it might be an 8-week package for free as kind of a bonus. If you want to explore these personality frameworks and figure out kind of who you are within them and how that plays out in your real life, how you can kind of use that in your everyday life, I would love to do that with you. I'm super enjoying it. It's a little bit more work for me than I normally do, but it's worth it. And I'm learning a ton and the clients are learning a ton. And I feel like it's a really high value thing. So I have space right now for two people to come and partner with me, in this way. So if you're interested, go to the show notes. There's a link for a free session, sign up, and we can talk about that and see if that would be a good fit for you. So I'm going to be doing an episode on every one of those tools coming up. And I'm probably not going to spread it out every Monday, like most of my episodes come out. I'm probably going to call these bonus episodes, and they're just going to drop when they're ready, or spread out somehow throughout the week. So watch for those to come. They're really fun. It's a little bit more lighthearted, a little less deep than the identity and purpose stuff that I usually talk about. And yeah. And, did I forget anything? I think that's what I wanted to say. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then reach out and let's chat. My pricing, which I like to say, is $500 a month or $5,000 a year. So it's a pretty big price break if you sign up for the whole year. But if you do month to month, then you're not committing to that full year. You're just committing month to month. And I get it. Some people need that. So, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you believe and celebrate. I hope you are well. I hope it is a time of peace. And I hope it's a time of slowing down and being with yourself and your family.